Welcome to the Leap Hour, where inspiring leadership meets real-world impact. Hosted by Steve Farber, acclaimed author of The Radical Leap, this show brings you face-to-face with visionary leaders who embody the art of leading with love, energy, audacity, and proof. In each episode, Steve dives deep into the journeys of remarkable individuals who've embraced extreme leadership to ignite change, spark innovation, and inspire others to greatness. These are the game changers, the risk takers, and the leaders who prove that heart and courage can change the world. This is the Leap Hour, and the conversation starts now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leap Hour. I'm your host, Steve Farber. I'm joined today by my friend Mitch Luciano, who I'll tell you about in just a second. First of all, a quick overview as to what this series is about. If you're joining us for the first time, this is our third episode, third of many more to come. 20 years ago, my first book called The Radical Leap came out. 20 years ago. Unbelievable. And this is what it looked like back then. That's the cover. That's the original cover. Now it looks something like this because it's been through several editions. And the idea here in this series is to explore one of the unintended consequences of publishing this book. And what that is, in short, is because of the message of the book and the people who read it, I have met some pretty extraordinary people. People who read this book that I didn't know they existed. They didn't know I existed. They read the book, and there was a connection that was made through the content. So LEAP stands for love, energy, audacity, and proof. That is the framework that the book reveals, and that I've been working with now for the last 20 years. So I've met some really great people who either adopted those ideas or used them as a confirmation of who they already were and what they were already doing. They just hadn't seen it framed up in this way, and it enabled them or emboldened them to step up and try some things differently. Mitch Luciano was one of those people that I met through the book years, actually, after he initially read it. Mitch is the CEO of Trailer Bridge, which is a shipping logistics company in Jacksonville, Florida. I am wearing their hat right now. I'm sporting the logo. And he is an extraordinary leader. He's a great human being, and has a really inspiring story to tell about the turnaround that he kind of stepped into at Trailer Bridge years ago. So, Mitch, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Well, Steve, it's good to be with you again, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation.
Well, thank you. So let's start with just give us the high level of Trailer Bridge. So here's the journey I'd like us to take over the next hour or so. High level of what Trailer Bridge is, what the company is, and then the story about your entree into that company, and then what happened going forward. And just one other thing before we start. So in full transparency, we're having some issues on the back end of this broadcast today with our producer who is something happened. He's not here, so I'm kind of piloting this thing, and I have, technically speaking, no idea what the hell I'm doing. So one of the things that would happen right now is you would see a URL. And the URL would be radicalleap.org. O-R-G. Now, the reason that's important is in celebration of this 20th year anniversary of the Radical Leap, we're giving away a free download of the audiobook of the Radical Leap. So I would encourage you to go and download it, and I can live in your ear while you listen to the book. radicalleap.org. Okay, Mitch, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
So tell us about Trailer Bridge.
So Trailer Bridge is started as a company servicing Puerto Rico from the United States back in 1992, 91, but technically first sailing was 92. and it evolved over the years. It grew from a small, two barge a week or a barge a week to two barges a week. And then new ownership took over back in 2011. And it was coming out of bankruptcy. That's why the new ownership took it over. I actually joined in 2012 after having a career of starting different logistics companies. And I joined to take a break. That was my goal. Was I'm just gonna take a break. I just want to be like run up a logistics company. There was nine of us.
To take a break from leading a company? You mean?
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted.
Team instead of being the guy.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to do. That was my goal. There's challenges in my personal life that I wanted to focus on. That was the goal at the time in 2012. Well, exactly 2 years later, November of 2014. And let's see, our anniversary was just 4 days ago, November 9th. The board, the shareholders came to me because we had 4 CEOs in 2 years. Tried consultants. We
call that turnover, I believe.
Yeah, it was a lot. And so I built a relationship with them, and they asked me to take over again. And I was like, you know what? Let's do this. I've been here long enough. Incredible people were here. I knew that. Unfortunately, the people that had led before didn't really get to know them. And I had the fortune, I think, because of the role I was in. I got to know the people a little bit closer than a typical new CEO might. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but they kind of like to stay in an office and hide. And we weren't doing very well. I mean, $100 million company losing $20+ million a year. I took it over just knowing that I believe the shareholders were going to support the growth. And we fortunately just started plugging away. And the first thing, I would tell you those first 3 years, and I share this story a lot, is it was about the people. I said, I don't care about the customers. I don't care about the shareholders. I don't mind if my shareholders are listening right now, they'll probably be pissed, but that's not, they will be happy. I can't care about that right now. I got to care about the people. And once the people are happy, it all comes together. And so
let me press pause there for a second, because you would think that by now that focus on people would not be a radical thought. But given the history of Trailer Bridge at that time, that was a pretty radical approach, wasn't it? I mean, in other words, it wasn't a people-focused place before then, right?
No, it was a definite hierarchy, right? I sat in plenty of board meetings where I heard some C-suite people taking credit for work that others did, and it just drove me crazy. And so there was definitely a hierarchy, and you better understand it. And if you had an idea, and if it was a good idea, they were going to take ownership of it. If it was a bad idea, they're going to tell you it's your bad idea. And so it was just one of those just toxic places. And it was, I felt it when I was at a VP level, and it took time. I mean, it's something that, you had said something early on, and I'm going to come back to this, but you had said something early on about it just confirms what people already believe, or it's something new they've learned through the book. And I read the book. I have the original copy that you showed. I wish I would have brought it if I'd known that we were going to be comparing original copies. But so I read it in 2006 as a gift from Jeff Vaughn, a good friend and the chief commercial officer here at Trailer Bridge. And it kind of confirmed what, we had done in previous companies, but it also gave me new ideas about how it really has to be done every day. Right. And so I'll come back to 2014 and 15 when I was telling her, this is something we have to do every single day. And because after 4 CEOs, people are going to look for something. They're going to want to find that nick in the armor somewhere. And so you can't go stomping through the office. You better have a smile. When you say hello, you better stop and say hello. And how are they doing? And it was really, really important. It took 3 years. So, it was still the end of 17, beginning of 18, where we really started seeing the results change.
So the stream that you stepped into, you came in as part of the executive team.
Yep.
They'd been through 4 CEOs in 2 years. Again, I just want to reiterate that because I'm just trying to imagine that from an employee or an associate's perspective, right? And then, so they got to know you a little bit because you were in that other role. But when the board came to you and said, okay, your turn, you're the next CEO. I would imagine that there was a bit of an attitude that I kind of picture it as collective eye rolling.
Well, actually, how it worked was they offered me the role of president. There was still an interim CEO that had a contract through March of 15. Well, he was let go. And so once he was let go, and I reported to the board and he reported to the board. Once he was let go, they asked me to be the CEO. And I told them no. And they said, what do you mean? And I was like, you guys don't want a CEO right now. These people, they don't want to see a CEO. They're just going to think it's the next man in, next man out, next person in, person out, woman in, woman out, whatever. I was like, just let me be the president. And then it was December of 15. They said, hey, we want you to have a seat on the board. I was like, hey, perfect. I'll be number 7. I'll be a deciding factor in this thing. And they said, but you have to be the CEO. And I actually walked out of the board meeting telling them I had to think about it. And at the time, my CFO and I were walking down Park Avenue in New York City. And he looked over at me and he goes, hey, I have one piece of advice for you. And what's that? He goes, if you don't take it, they're going to bring in somebody else. And you have to report to somebody else. And I was like, oh, shit, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So I immediately called the chairman of the board. I said, I accept the role of CEO. So that's kind of how that played out, because I knew, again, that the title itself, exclusive of me, just the title alone, just had an, eyes rolling kind of moment. I knew it would.
So you had to establish, and you mentioned this a couple of minutes ago. You had to immediately establish a different relationship with the team, right?
Yep.
And this was how many people at that time? How big was Trailer Bridge?
110.
110, all pretty much under the same roof, or mostly under the same roof?
Mostly
right?
under the same roof. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you establish begin to set a new precedent as to what the relationship is between the CEO and the rest of the team?
Well, the end result needed to be trust.
Okay.
There had to be trust. And so then it became, one of the challenges with the previous leadership was the lack of following up on what you're going to do. Do what you say you're going to do, Dwizzy would, right? And so that was the beginning of it. If I said I was going to do something, I had to do it. Or if we said we're going to do something as leadership, we had to do it. No questions asked. And if we couldn't do it for some reason, we had to explain why. Not we just couldn't do it. And that was a typical answer previously. So we had to establish trust. And then, but with trust is getting to know my family, getting to know my kids, and the kids would come by, having little company events like a beach event or something where the families would get together, getting to know them and truly listening to them, like genuinely listening, not looking through them, but hearing what they're saying. And what may be small and minute to me may be really important to somebody else. So I had to make sure that I said, oh, I don't know that I would have this much energy into this, but it's not my life. So I better give it the energy they want. And that was, it was, it was tough at first. I mean, it was a lot of energy being burned, but it was worth it. Because not only have I built bonds, I've built friendships with people that, employees I text on the weekend, or I don't know how many of them this morning text me this morning saying, good luck this morning. We're thinking of you. Love you, man. And so it's right there is the greatest example. It just means the world to me. So
what do you say, man, there's so much in there to unpack, as we like to say nowadays. But what do you say to the conventional wisdom, which I think is still prevailing wisdom in a lot of companies, that says a CEO should not do that, that you need to keep the line, a very clear delineation between work and home, that friendships get in the way of effective leadership? What do you say to that?
Well, I've had a few posts on LinkedIn over the years talking about love and referencing your book at times. And I've had plenty of people comment that there's no such thing as love in business. Or I've had the comment, because I refer to we're a family. You cannot call it a family. And the reason I believe it's that way is they're afraid to hurt the feelings of somebody when they have to make a difficult decision.
Right.
I believe that CEO is more protecting themselves than the company. And I just think that, you know what, you're going to have to make tough decisions sometimes, but that doesn't mean you don't love them. I mean, listen, there are times we don't like our family, but I still love them. And so I think we all can, anyone that's listening to this can relate. And so I think it's a protectionism for that individual, and that's what they're going to have to let that go. Let it go.
So the challenge that you had was to establish trust, and you said you burned a lot of energy in those early days. What do you mean by that?
You know, it was make sure you're there early, making sure you're staying late. I think my schedule now is a little bit different than it used to be. That you have, I mean, I'm a CEO. I still have a job to do. While at the same time, I have to give the energy to the people. Because in the beginning, I said it's about the people. They're the ones that are doing the job. You know, getting in the weeds and getting it done every day for our company, our customers, our vendors, and it's talking to them. It's, you know, when they come into the office and they say, do you have 5 minutes? You know, it's going to be 20, and you're okay with that. And you get away from your computer. You don't look at it. You turn towards them. And that takes a lot of energy. And I know that, I think you and I have talked about this before. I know that, you know, empathy is a word I've seen used in some of your books. I'm more of a compassion, because I think the only reason I say that is being empathetic is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I was very empathetic in the beginning, and it took a lot. It was draining, you know, because I really put myself in the shoes. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. We've got to pay the power bill. We're going to have to do this, and we have to do this. And then I kind of started switching to compassion. I'm still empathetic at times. I'm like, hey, I've got compassion for them, and I understand what they're going through, because I may have gone through it myself at one point in my life. Right. But I can't fix everything. You know, sometimes people have to fix their own challenges, whether personal or professional. And so then it's, you know, it took energy. Nothing successful doesn't take a lot of energy. I mean, I've never met anyone who's succeeded in anything and said, oh, that was a piece of cake. No, it drains you, because then you go home, you have a sit down dinner with your family. Right. And your kids, they're just seeing you for the first time, really, because you left early. Now you're going to have to give them the energy. And I struggled with that at first, but then I kind of got it back over time. It took a little while. But I had to learn how to balance the two of them. Well,
it makes sense given the goal was to establish trust, because trust is something that's built over time. It's not built in an instant, right? 100%. So it's doing what you say you will do over and over and over and over again. And, you know, so it takes time to establish a track record of doing what you say you will do. And what's so challenging about that is it takes years sometimes to build that trust and that expenditure of energy to make that happen, like you described. Yep. And it could be destroyed in an instant.
And it can be something really small too. It doesn't have to be something big that destroys it.
And it's built with really small things. So if you think back to those days where you were first establishing that trust as the new CEO and challenging yourself to do what you say you will do you remember any specifics of things that you said and then consciously followed through on simply because you said them?
I mean, there's several. The very first one, I'll never forget the very first one. It started by changing the town hall. We have a monthly town hall. And the town halls used to be, you know, a piece of paper. The CEO stood there and just talked, right? Had 4 topics I want to talk about. No questions, nothing. So we changed the town hall to allowing them to provide suggestions. And then we had, you know, 8 or 10 slides about the company, what's going on, are we making any changes, what's the performance like? And one of the suggestions was the very first one, can we get an ice machine? We didn't have an ice machine. I know it sounds dumb, but we didn't have one. So I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're in Florida. You got to have an ice machine.
Right?
It's hot.
I mean, they want the famous, you know, crunchy ice you get from like Sonic and Chick-fil-A kind of stuff, right? That was their goal. And so when I said yes, I made a bad assumption that someone would just make that happen instead of asking somebody to make it happen. A couple of days goes by and I started asking, does anyone order the ice machine? They're like, no. I'm like, okay. So I went online. I ordered the ice machine and it got delivered. and I ordered absolutely the wrong ice machine. I did not get the proper ice. So we've fixed that since. We've got the proper ice now. But I think really a lot of that trust got established in the town halls, because sometimes the suggestions were things that came across for some as ridiculous. And they said, we shouldn't put this in the town hall. And I was like, we're putting every single suggestion that comes across in the town hall.
So were you hearing that? Were you hearing that from the leadership team in particular?
A couple of the people that knew that knew was on the board, the town hall slides. They're like, hey, this is crazy. We don't need to add this one. I go, we already know the answer. I go, no, but it's important enough for someone to write it down, and so I need to address it. And so it's almost it's become, so I would address it. So I think that helped build trust. It was like, if the answer was no, I'd give a reason. If the answer is yes, I'd make sure we follow up, and that helped build trust. And it's actually a point where we get to the town hall slide, and the whole company, I can hear it over the video. I can hear at corporate, they're like, here we go. Like, what's coming up next? And so we all kind of enjoy it now. And I think it's built trust amongst us that they're comfortable enough to say what they want to say, as long as it's not rude to others. That's a big point. It can't be rude to others. I'm not going to address that kind of stuff. But if it's, even though it's we've had some crazy ones, but we all get a kick out of it, and that kind of helped build trust. And I think, when we say we're going to have a meeting, we have a meeting. I've had the experience of senior leadership would always cancel a meeting last minute. Oh, I got more important things to do. Well, you said that your stuff is more important than hanging out with us or doing something with us, and you got to follow through on that. Now, there are times that I've had, like we have a Building Bridges, which is a mentoring program, and just a discussion really program. And I've had to tell my people, it's like, guys, I know this is last minute. I am so sorry, but we're going to have this. It's just not going to be at 11 o'clock today. And let's see if we can reschedule this. And so there are times it happens, but at the same time, it's little things like that really go a long way. And trust is more than, I don't know, just saying hello to somebody. It's caring about them, caring about their family. We had a lady, and she knows that she's watching. She knows exactly who she is. That she was doing a bang out job for us on something, and she told me one time that her daughter loves to read books, and her granddaughter loves to read books. And so instead of getting her a gift, I got her granddaughter. I got her a Kindle so she can read books electronically. And she's an amazing person, and she was just so thankful, and that meant more to her than me giving her a gift card somewhere. So it's those kind of things. That means I was listening and paying attention.
So if you dive into what made that possible, it might sound like I'm stating the obvious, but this is not obvious to some people. In order for you to buy that Kindle for her granddaughter, you had to know that her granddaughter loved to read.
She told me.
Because she told you. Because
Yes.
you cared to know,
Yes.
right? If you lived in your office and only you were kind of, as some so-called leaders that I've met over the years do, they lurk in their cave until something goes wrong, and then they emerge, like a dragon, spewing fire, to burn the people that screwed up, and then retreat back into their cave. If you're that person, again, it sounds obvious. You're never going to know. Because you don't care.
Yeah.
Unless
and no one's going to tell you because they don't want to be burned. So
exactly.
They're not going to say it to you.
Exactly. So the I'm harping on this a little bit, this doing what you say you will do thing,
Yep.
because it's for one thing, I'm right in the midst of writing a book about that very thing right now.
Perfect.
So it's right, top of mind for me. But it's really about track record. So I'll get up on my soapbox here just for a second. So my mentors, Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner, the authors of the Leadership Challenge, have done all kinds of work on credibility. They have a book called Credibility. And what I learned from Jim, when I first met him back in the 90s, when I joined the Tom Peters Company, he was the president, is this great analogy that credibility derives from the Latin word credo, which means I believe. And the word credit as in financial credit, comes from that same root. So in order to get a loan from a bank, I have to establish a credit record, right? That's what a credit report is.
Yep.
So do I have a history of paying when I said I will pay? That's essentially what a credit report is, right? So
Yep.
a bank will make that determination. Yeah, pretty good. We'll give you that money. If I don't, then I'm either going to pay a higher interest rate, or I'm not going to get the loan. So from the very beginning, you were establishing a credit report of sorts, a credibility report, by doing what you say you will do. Ice machine, if I've got to go and order the wrong one myself, I'm going to do that because I said I would, and there it is. It's right there on my credit report, as it were, in the eyes of people. And you establish that track record. Tell me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm hearing. You establish that track record with a lot of small things and big things over time. And then in those moments where you say, guys, I'm sorry, I can't make the meeting that I said I was going to be at. What do? They look at your report. They look at your credit report. Say, oh no, this guy's got a history of doing what he says he will do. So of course, no problem. Nobody's perfect. We'll cut you some slack. But if it happens over and over and over again, ding, 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 on your credit report, your credibility report, then pretty soon you don't have that grace anymore.
Right.
So you got to work, in a lot of the small ways and big ways right from the beginning. So if you would, could you put that work in the context of love? I know you've been very forthright about how love is an intentional thing for you in the way the Trailer Bridge operates. So how does all this relate to the love thing?
Well, if you're asking for people to trust you and you're asking them to build your credit for you, love comes in so many different ways, right? And I think that's where people struggle sometimes with this conversation. And you've talked about it plenty of times, and you and I talked about it, and I've talked about it internally. It's not the huggy kissy, it's the holding the door open for someone. It's the when you come out of that's gonna sound stupid, but when you come out of the bathroom and the person's sitting right outside the bathroom at their desk, because it's the first time you saw them all day, and you say, good morning. And they say, good morning back. And you say, how are you? And you keep eye contact the entire time. That's love. That's respect. That's building trust. And I think, it's making sure you go for me, going to the port to see the people. Now, I lost my badge there for a month or two, so I couldn't go all the time, but that was love. It's when the union strikes you, and you ask all your workers to come work the port or work the barge, and you've got more volunteers than you need. And I'm like, oh my God, they just gave me love back. They just loved each other. They just loved the whole company. And so then it's happening. I think probably one of the most important times is any leader has to make a tough decision sometimes, and not necessarily about individuals, but about process or about disagreeing with something that's happening or not agreeing with it, whatever you want to call it. And at the end of it, people come up to you, they give you a hug, and they say, we trust you, we love you, we know you have our best interests at heart. Then you've accomplished something. You've done your job. And so ultimately, it helps build the foundation for a business that now, and I hear it all the time, we love working with Trailer Bridge. Holy cow, we love your social media posts. We love your people we work with. We love everything. And they're not just using we love. And I'm like, I don't even know these people, and they love us. So
are you talking about people that do business with you?
Yes, vendors, customers. Yeah. And so then they love us, or they love the person they work with. And it just, as you say, it just goes on and on and on and on. It just doesn't stop right here. And, the families of our family, they're happier because the person at work is happier. And then, it just keeps going. And so it just, I love this place. You know that. I love my people. And it takes time, but love love builds the rest. And to love someone is not difficult. It's harder to be a jackass than to be nice. And that's why I tell people all the time. It's like, why? It takes so much work to not be nice than just be nice. And you know, I'll never forget. After one of our leaderships that we had, she's no longer with us, but she had been with us 20 plus years. And one of the things she got out of leadership, I asked her, I said, why don't you just say hello to the cashier at the grocery store? You will change her day. And she did. And she goes, Mitch, the next time I got the same cashier, I said hello again. We started having a conversation. Then the next time we went in again, and now we're kind of like friends. And she goes, just because I said hello is a form of love to a person who's sitting at the same spot for 8 hours doing the exact same thing. You know how many people are going through there just being rude? I go, that's perfect. So it just carries on. So
so on the one hand, it's very, what I'm hearing you say is it's very, very simple. We're not talking about necessarily an entirely different approach to people. It's a basic, kind, caring approach to people. And isn't it also true that it ain't always that easy, right?
No.
I mean, it's also very, very messy. I mean, you use the analogy of your, it's not even so much an analogy, but just the example of the family before, right? I mean, anybody that's raised kids, I mean, I raised teenagers for 25 straight years. So I have some experience with, I don't like you today, but I do love you. And we've all had that experience, in every aspect of our lives. And it's also true at work. And one of the ways it shows up is you can have genuine love for two related things, and that seems to come in conflict with each other. So, for example, as the CEO, you damn well better love the company, right?
Yep.
You have a fiduciary responsibility to that company being successful. So if I'm a CEO and I love the company, and I genuinely love the people in that company, there are times where those smack up against each other, right?
Yeah.
Where the things that I need to do, the decisions that I need to make on behalf of the company can look like I don't love the people that work here. And I'm assuming, in the beginning, it might have seemed like vice versa to your shareholders. I'm doing these things because I love the people that work here, and they're going like, why are we spending money on that? Right. So it goes both ways. And sometimes my love for the customers is going to smack up against my love for the employees, and vice versa. So I don't want people to get the impression that this is, all I gotta do is smile and be nice and everything will take care of itself. That's a big deal. But then there's the other stuff that every leader has to deal with, CEO or not.
Yeah, I think I agree, 100% agree with you. But if the love as for my role of the shareholders and the company has to make decisions, or love for a customer that is conflict with the love that some may perceive, if you explain it and you communicate it, I really believe that they will understand, as long as you've built that trust over time. I mean, well, you're right. I mean, I don't know how many times the board members, or I was in a board meeting, they'd be like, what the hell are you doing? This is not, you got to give me 3 years. That was our deal. And then at the end of 3 years, we started making money, and they were like, well, I don't know why this works, but okay, let's go for it. And so but as long as you explain it, even with the board, when they said, why are you doing all this? I said, because I need to do this to get to here, to get the company to here. And so it does start with the love for the company, but this is what I need to do. And if you communicate, people will, it's when you don't communicate, that's when people fill the gaps with doubts and all these other possible things. I mean, and I think you can manage through it, but you have to communicate why. Maybe not to everybody, but the ones that may be feeling the impact. And I think they'll respect you for that. I think we do. If someone tells me no, and they say, just because, that's not, I mean, how many times, my children, I say no, and they go, why? And I go, because. They go, that's not an answer. Why? So if you explain it, it doesn't change from 4 years old to 70, 80 years old. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So it's it's putting it all on the table. It's being transparent. It's explaining to people the reasons behind the decisions that are made, even though it might feel like it hurts.
Yep.
But I want to pull out the focus just for a second, because what we weren't very clear on in this discussion so far is the impact of this approach, right? Because what you did mention is that back in the day, it was a $100 million company losing $20 million a year and a toxic environment. So let me just ask you, how many times now in your tenure, so in the 3-year period and after that you just described, how many times have you guys made it onto some kind of a best place to work list?
Every year. Well, except for Fairness 2019, and I knew we wouldn't because we were going through changes, and in general, people don't like change, right? They like consistency, and we were going through changes as an organization. Ironically, it was one of the highest scoring years we ever had in the best place to work, but we didn't make the list. And I was like, did they just keep us off because we won it for the last several years? And so, but we got it again this year. We've been on that, and that's a local in Jacksonville Business Journal. We've been on Inc. magazine's best place to work. And so, and this is stuff voted by the surveys done by the employees, to the point where at one point I had our former controller walk in my office and he goes, "Are you going to stand over my shoulder as I fill out this survey?" I go, "Why the hell would I do that?" And he goes, "Well, my last company, the CEO did that to every single employee." And I went,
"Oh my gosh,
oh, that's shit." I was like, "No, I'm going to stay in my office. You do it at home. I don't care where you do it."
Yeah. Yeah.
The results have come back as a positive experience for the employees.
So, I mean, that's a significant thing from a place with, losing money year after year, burning through 4 CEOs in 2 years, being a toxic place to being best place to work year after year after year after year. I mean, there's no small thing. So I wanted to make sure that people understood that. And then financially, the company's done incredibly well too, and growth-wise and all that, right?
Yeah, we're on 10 years now. I mean, the last couple of years have been difficult for the transportation logistics industry. I mean, we're in the largest freight recession we've ever seen, probably in 40, 50 years. And so, but we're not going anywhere. We're still here. I've delivered that message to the company several times over the last months is we're strong. We may not be doing as well as we would like, but others are doing worse. And so we just have to stay focused at the goals in front of us. We will get out of this. But if you take the 10 years, we've done really well for the shareholders. We've done well for ourselves, for our own personal pocketbooks and the shareholders' pocketbooks. The last couple of years, again, haven't been great, but we'll kick it in another gear in 2025 and 2026. We'll see how this takes off again.
So for those who think that, who kind of put this love thing in the category of, it's a nice to have maybe, but really it's, California touchy-feely hoo-ha crap, soft, fluffy stuff. You guys are demonstrating, you and your team, not just Mitch, but the whole Trailer Bridge family is demonstrating that, love has direct and indirect impact on everything from customer relationships, as you've described before, turnover, best place to work, financial success, and given what the industry is going through right now, resilience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's that foundation. And tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that foundation of a company where people truly love each other and love the business and love your customers, when you hit those, the forces that you can't control from the outside, like a freight recession, for example, you have the resilience to navigate through it and emerge stronger on the other side.
And the example I'll give you is we actually, during this freight recession, from a shipment count grew. I mean, the revenues have come down per shipment, so the revenues are pretty flat, but we grew. And it's like, when everyone else is like declining, we were in growth mode. I'm like, this is awesome. I mean, this is just a perfect example of how this culture says, I don't care what's happening outside. We're going to keep happening inside, and we're just going to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
And when people love where they work, the person on the other end of the phone or email, whatever it is, they feel it too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, We've been getting some comments here. So we got a few people from Trailer Bridge who are tuning in.
Yep.
And there's one that I'm going to quote for obvious reasons. Reasons will become obvious after I quote it. It's from Justin. He says, "Love generates energy, love inspires audacity, and love requires proof." That's the LEAP framework. And it's this framework through which we can accomplish anything that we set out to do, in my experience. So obviously that comes from the Radical Leap. And when I, as the author of those words, when I read them and I hear them from people, I mean, I can't even describe what that feels like. And the most rewarding thing for me is to see people like the Trailer Bridge family put these things into practice. It's one thing to write a book about it. It's another thing to actually do it. So I would love, maybe this is a little self-indulgent. I don't know. Forgive me if it is, but could you talk a little bit about your relationship with the Radical Leap, which, by the way, once again, people could go to radicalleap.org and download the audiobook for free. But could you talk a little bit about your kind of relationship with the book and what, if any, influence it had on your thinking?
The framework in which the book was written and in which it's read connected with me in ways, I'm not a big believer of the 6 principles of a leader, stuff like that. I'm like, there's only 6. All right, great. I didn't know that. I have to get these 6 down. I'm good to go. And the frameworks were written, and I put myself inside the story of UNH, right? I put myself there. I'm like, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling, sitting at the diner or doing those different things. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And so I've done this in my life. And so I didn't know what I was doing. I just figured I was just being kind. And I was like, well, wait a second. I'm actually loving these people, which then creates energy. And I did this. And on the other side of this wall right here is a guy I hired in 2002. The energy in our office was so high. We were young and dumb, so audacious was easy to do because we didn't know anything different and wrong. And then our proof was for us at the time, it was in the P&L. That's what the proof was, or the results of getting new customers every day. I was like, I've been doing this, and the way it connected and the actions I had taken through my career to that point resonated with me because I went, oh, this works, and it's worked for others, and it worked for you. And to write the book, you had to feel this somewhere, right? I knew it had to work for you, and so if I just kept carrying that out, it ironically kept working. Not specifically in every 4 steps, or maybe it's 2 of the 4, or 3 of the 4, or 1. It just kept working. And you have to connect with some people. Just want the proof. All right, let's get to that. All right. Some people just want the energy. Great. Let's get to that. Others don't even talk to me about the love part. I'll take the other 3 all day long. And so it resonated with me in leading people that everyone wants something within that. And it's your job to find out what that something is. And it may be they just need the energy. They just need the excitement around the job. And that's what they want to feel. And they will get love out of that, or they will get something out of that. Or some people just love that. Listen, I've got plenty of people in this family that love being audacious all the time. You're like, calm down with the audacity. I love it. But and that's what they need for themselves. It's a way to help people. I think from a leader, it helped me help people grow. It helped me lead them and coach them, mentor them to become better than they thought they could be.
Right. So what I'm hearing in that, first of all, just by way of context for people that are unfamiliar with the book, it's written as a novel. It's written as a story. So when you talk about, you saw yourself in the story, that's kind of the delivery mechanism of the LEAP framework. But what I'm also hearing is it's not like you had this successful career before coming to Trailer Bridge, And until you read this book, you were an asshole.
No,
and then suddenly
I don't think so.
Then
Probably some
suddenly
people
you
I was.
experience.
Some people probably would call me that.
No, I'm not saying that you've never been called that, but it's not like you read this book and suddenly there was this grand epiphany that said, I've been doing it all wrong. What I'm hearing is what you read was, oh, I've been doing a lot of things really right, and maybe not as intentionally as I could have. And really all this did, again, like we said early on in this conversation, it was really a confirmation of what was already there, right?
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. I think that if I go back 20 plus years, people would say that about me, and it was just it was a confirmation, but it also allowed me to, how do I get better? Because as a leader, you have to continuously get better. And I think one of the things that Trailer Bridge gave me was the opportunity to lead a very, very diverse group, which I had never done previously. And it allowed me to extend those beliefs into different cultures, different societies, and different areas of the country. And that was the biggest honor I could have had. And I still have to this day. I do have.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but again, I really, I don't want to just let this go, because in my experience, the people who have really put the radical leap into practice in significant ways, and people like, obviously like yourself and other guests we'll have here in the future, all kind of fit into that category. I'm trying to think if there's any one of them that experienced some kind of a big conversion from being a jackass, as you said earlier, to being a love person. No, I think every single one of them, it was really in the confirmation category, right? Which is really lovely, because what that says to me is that that is more. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I'm completely naive about this, but that's really more the norm.
I would say it's more normal. I think you have to have a good heart, a good soul. You have to have some level of care for others. You have to be somewhat unselfish. I mean, we all have to be selfish at times. We have to take care of ourselves, but you have to be somewhat unselfish. And I think those are the individuals that connect more. I'm not saying others don't. And so they're right on the brink of it. They're already experiencing it, but they can't define it.
Right.
They've been told, why do you care so much about that employee? And they're like, damn, am I not supposed to care about employees? And that's not what this. And so this kind of reaffirms, yeah, I am. That's the right thing to do. And if someone wants to tell me not to care about an employee, that's on them, not on me. Right. And I think this reaffirms what the actions people are taking. And I would agree with you.
So, and I think the stereotype of a business person is that they are selfish, and that it's a zero-sum game, and that then my success is somehow predicated on your failure. That the way that I get ahead is by stepping on other people's heads. That is, and that's a stereotype, and I think I don't think it applies to most business people. I will say though that there are people who think they're supposed to be that way. And when they hear a conversation,
you're taught that in some ways. Yeah, that's why they do it.
Sometimes we're taught it overtly, and sometimes we're taught it subtly. Yeah. But we are taught that.
Yeah.
And then to hear, so maybe I've been taught that, and I come into the workforce as a young person just out of college, and I thought, okay, now's my chance to make my mark and burn my way to the top, whatever, just because they think they're supposed to. And then they hear a conversation like what we're having, or they read The Radical Leap or another, book that has a similar kind of a philosophy to it. And they go like, oh, I've been doing it wrong. That's what I'd rather do it that way. I think there's a lot of people in that category also.
Of course you're going to have. I mean, we've so obviously, as you know, as part of our leadership development program inside Trailer Bridge, the very first book everybody reads is Radical Leap. And I always say the first 4 hours it's a 2-day session. We do it. We used to do it four times, but we only do it 3 different sessions. But it's 2 days each session. The first 4 hours is just to sit back and I don't know about this. I don't know about this stuff. I'm not entirely sure this is right. And so then we start getting into it, and then they read the book, and they always come back in the second session. They're like, "Oh, now I understand." So I see it. I see that live. That happens. That happens all the time, and so I see it. So it does. It absolutely does happen. They understand where. I think it helps them understand where I'm coming from, or the leadership team is coming from. They're like, "Oh, now we get why you do this. It's not." It's for no other reason than actually you genuinely care. That's the idea.
So, I mean, you got to have the raw material to work with, right? So, and to that end, I mean, clearly you have the raw material, Mitch. So don't take it from me. Take it from another comment here, Rich. So I'm not wearing my glasses. That's why
Rich.
My eyesight is getting worse. I don't think
he
has nothing to do with it. But here's what Rich says. I've known Mitch since we both were rookies at C.H. Robinson in Raleigh, North Carolina. He is the real deal, and Trailer Bridge is very lucky to have him at the helm. So here's a guy who goes way back, and can attest to the raw material.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich. No, he's Rich. Rich is a great human, great dad, great husband. He and I have known each other for 27 and a half years, and it's one of those friendships. He and I caught up, I think, 4 or 6 months ago. And it's one of those things that we may not talk for a year or two, but then all of a sudden you get on the phone with each other and it's like, hey, how's the wife doing? How's the kids doing? His kids are in college now. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. Great. And you notice other people's kids are always frozen in time to the last place where you saw them.
Yeah, 100%.
It's always a shock. So I'm just curious, as we come into the last little bit of time here together, today, that is, together today. We'll have more time together later, I'm sure. But I'm going back to the town hall idea, which again is not a new idea anymore. But what you illustrated for us is that simply bringing people together and calling it a town hall does not make it an effective thing, right? Like the CEO who gets up and reads a script and sends everybody away and never hears anything from them. So you guys have this tradition now of hearing ideas. And there is a misconception, I think, about love that it means, similar to what we were talking about earlier, it means that I have to make people happy all the time. And I have to say yes all the time. But you implied that people come up with ideas at these town halls that you're not going to do.
Yeah.
So do you have any examples of things that you've said no to?
I mean, we've had crazy things from supplying personal hygiene items to starting a credit union internally inside of Trailer Bridge, which I certainly, if you look at, which I looked up, by the way, I was like, how hard is it to start a bank? It's impossible to start a bank unless you have a lot of cash and, to be regulated by the FCC. It's very, 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 very difficult. Whoever regulates the banks. Anyway, so we've had some of those. Beer pong Fridays. Had to mix that one. Pong. I mean, the whole OSHA applies, so really can't have a beer pong Friday in a building where OSHA can shut it down. So I mean, so we've had a lot, and so we've and it's sometimes I've been like, come on guys, I can't do this, so I'm gonna read it and I'll say no, and then we've had some very personal ones or ones where people are like, ooh, and I read it and I addressed it, and I don't like to know who it's from. Sometimes people supply who it is. My goal is not to know who it is. I don't want to know who wrote it. I just want to address it. There's someone just wrote on there, can we have sweatpant Fridays? And I went, no, I said, we already have, for those in Florida, we already have shorts on Friday, but sweatpants Friday is just a little too comfy. For the whole Trailer Bridge family that's listening, they would love it if I would buy Trailer Bridge Snuggies that you put over yourself like a blanket and you wear like a one piece. And I'm like, it's not happening, guys. It's not happening. And they've asked for that one more than a handful of times. So yeah, we've got a lot, but again, as you're laughing, there's humor within us too, right? There's humor within the company because it's just part of one of the 8 slides, and people look forward to it now, right? And then the final slide is always like my final thought, and I think people look forward to that. What am I going to talk about? What's going on in the company in the last 30 days? I need to address good, indifferent, whatever, to hopefully inspire some. I can't inspire all. That's impossible.
Well, what you're doing, to put it in the LEAP framework, is you're inspiring audacity with that.
Yeah.
Right. So audacity is a bold and blatant disregard for normal constraints, and inspire means to have other people be audacious, not just being audacious. So when you're able to, when I feel comfortable expressing an idea that might sound crazy, but at the very worst, we're going to have a good laugh about it, but I know you're going to consider it.
Yep.
I'm going to come up with more ideas. And when you have a culture that people are just really, happy to generate ideas because they know they're not going to get ridiculed for giving a stupid idea or speaking up. I tell you to speak up and then you speak up and then I yell at you for speaking up, which is a pretty classic kind of a dynamic. But instead to be able to just, how about sweatpants? How about beer pong Friday? How about a bank? How about, and then there's another idea that comes up that hits and changes everything.
Pet bereavement leave, just a day. That was one of the ideas. We're like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, these are like our pet bereavement. These are like our children, and if we lose them, let's give them a day or two to kind of just settle themselves back in. And, so that was an idea we implemented. So there's lots of ideas we implemented.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on. Pet bereavement
day or two. I can't remember if it's 1 day or 2 days off the top of my head. But yeah, so if they lose their animal, and we're not talking about the goldfish you just put down the toilet, we're talking about something that really had some sentiment, that you give them some time. Now, the irony of that is most people come into work because they want to be around their family again. They don't want to be sitting at home.
Right. But they can take it if they want it.
Yeah.
Wow. What a phenomenal idea. And what a lovely way to support people in something that only pet owners would understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because somebody who just doesn't like animals is like, really? Are you kidding? Yeah. But for those of us that have pets, it's like we know what it's like to lose an animal.
People want a gym membership. So we did what's called Class Pass. So they can go to yoga. They can go get a manicure. They can go to gym. They can go to cycling. They can do all these things. And I'm like, this is a great idea. It makes they're healthier. They're going to work harder. This is perfect. So we take a lot of the ideas and implement it.
And you wear your sweatpants there.
Yeah.
So it all works out. Wow, that's fantastic. So as we bring this in for a landing, Mitch, what last profound words do you have for folks who are tuning in? And first of all, let me just say thank you guys who have been commenting and listening to us live. Really appreciate your guys being here. But what some last thoughts for our conversation today?
Obviously, I think those that from the TV family on here, they know this about me. But for those that haven't had the chance to read the book or really see what this can do, take the time, go to the website, get the free audio, or go buy it if you can. Go buy it and read the book. I mean, Steve, you got other books that follow it. I would encourage you to keep reading all the other books. I think no matter where you are in life or what company you're working at, there's an opportunity to make a difference on others. And I think this book kind of shows you how you can do that. And that was one of the other things I kind of took from is how it gives you some of the tools, maybe not directly, but maybe indirectly, how you have the ability to go make change in the world. Because ultimately, I think as humans on this earth or souls on this earth, it is our responsibility to change the world every single day. And I think, Steve, you've touched on that in the past, but it's not changed the whole damn world. It's changed the world you're in or the person next to you. And this book kind of shows you how to do that. And your other books kind of follow up on that. And not just about yourself, but about your team, about your outside customers and vendors. It continues to expand who you believe who you are as a person. And I would take the time to do it.
Right. Well, thank you, Mitch. I appreciate that. Mitch, thanks for joining me today. What a great conversation. You're going to help a lot of people with this perspective. And folks, thanks for tuning in to the Leap Hour. Don't forget to go to radicalleap.org, download your free copy of the Radical Leap audiobook, which I personally will be reading to you right in your ear, just like this. And
I don't know if I could do that again.
Give it a try.
I'll give it. I'm going to give it a try. Next time I go for a bike ride, I'm going to throw it in my ear, and
it'd be a whole new experience. Imagine me living in your ear.
I know, on a bike ride. I'll come home and tell my wife I just rode with Steve on a bike ride.
Exactly. It's funny. I have had people say to me, I've listened to your audiobooks. I feel like I know you, because they recognize my voice. And and the thing is, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You do know me now. Anyway, thank you so much, Mitch. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Leap Hour.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on the Leap Hour. Hope you enjoyed our time together. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share the heck out of this thing. Also, don't forget to get your free copy of the Radical Leap audio at radicalleap.org. We'll see you next time on the Leap Hour.